This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Nun Dalit. All the learning of this month. The month of Teves has been generously sponsored as an incredible schos. Aliyah's Nishama for, I apologize, for Aryeh ben Yaakov, V'siyat Shemaya. The learning of the entire Chabura should bring Aryeh ben Yaakov higher and higher in Gan Eden Shalmaila. B'siyata dishmaya. We're holding on the bottom of Nun Gimel Amid Beis. We're at the two dots, 4 lines from the bottom. Nafal l'teicha yishar v'kelav v'nishtabru v'chulu. And from here we learn out the din of shar v'lo yadam, chamar v'lo kelav. Says the Gemara, Masnisan deloi ki Rav Yehuda. The Mishnah does not concur with the opinion of Rav Yehuda. Why not? Titanya, we learned in a brayso, Rav Yehuda mechayev al niskei kelim bebar. Says Rav Yehuda, you're obligated for damages done to kelim in a pit. My time of derabban. Says the Gemara, where do the Rabbanan get the din that you're potter on kelim in a pit? Says the Gemara, Damarkra, it says in the pasuk, V'nafal shama sharay chamar. From here we darsha the famous drush that we've had many times in the Masechta already. Shar v'loy adam, chamar v'loy kelim. V'Rav Yehuda, how does Rav Yehuda argue? Oy l'Rav kelim. V'Rabbanan, how do they retort back to Rav Yehuda as we turn over to Nun Dalid Amid Aleph? Say the Rabbanan, oy, what do they do with the word oy? Mi bayile lechalik. They need the word I to split up the pasuk. Rav Yehuda, what does he do? Rav Yehuda lechalek me v'nafal nafka. The extra vav v'nafal. V'Rabbanan v'nafal tuva. Mashma say the Rabbanan. No, v'nafal means many times the animal could fall. So says the Gemara, we have a machlekes between Rav Yehuda and the Rabbanan with regard to the status of damages to kelim in a bar. Says the Gemara, 1 second, 3 lines down, asks the Gemara, Ve'ema, V'nafal is a klal, Shar v'chamar is a prat, klalu prat, and what's the halach? And at the time the Torah gives a general law, and then it zooms in and narrows down with a specific. The halacha is, Ein v'chlal mashav prat. The general is only that which is inside with the prat, the specific. And therefore, shar v'chamar in, midi achrin ilai, and therefore, maybe the only animals one is obligated and liable for damages in a pit is specifically shar v'chamar. Answers the Gemara, no. Amri, the pasuk says, Bal habar yishalei. Bal habar should pay. So Bal habar now this is even more inclusive. Chazar ve'kolal. So this is another general statement. Klalu pradu klal. So now we have a general, a specific, and a general. From there we learn out yat adan el ke'ena prat has to be similar to the prat. Maha prat mefurash balei chayim. What is the prat now? Shar v'chamar, living animals. Av kol balei chayim. So to all balei chayim are, all living animals are included in the damages. Ask the Gemara, 1 second. Yima Abraham first mitam bimaga ubemasa. Shar v'chamar has the unique, not unique, but unique to other animals, that its carcass, that the nevela is mitama, it impures, it gives off impurity via touching and lifting it. So we should learn afkol davar shenevilasa mitamo b'mago b'masa. So what does that come to exclude? Says the Gemara about 12 lines down. The first line is b'mago b'masa. Avol oifais loy. Birds should be excluded. Answers the Gemara, if this were true, imkain, if this was true, nichtav rachmana, the Torah should have listed chad prata. Should have only listed 1 prat. Why would it list shar v'chamar? Should have said a shar or a chamar. Why list both? Says the Gemara, 1 second. Hey nichtav, which one should it have listed? Ikasiv shar, if it would have just said shar, I would have thought karav l'gav mizbeach in, shein karav l'gav mizbeach lai. I would think it's only items that are brought in the mizbeach. Because Rachman Chamar, Havamina Kodesh Bibachayra, Chamar has the din of Kedusha from the Bachar, the firstborn Chamar, Pidim Bet Chamar in Shein Kodesh Bibachayra Loi. So therefore the Torah had to write Shar V'Chamar. So says the Gemara, but Ella, so we're back to our Kasha, so it should exclude Oifais. Ella Amar Krav, Amesi Eloi, again, the general words and the dead body is his, Kol Davar Misa. Chumps include all things that one is liable for death, and therefore even the oif is included. Even the oif is included. Says the Gemara, about 15 lines down, the first one line is Misa Bein l'Rabbanon. That they say Shar v'lo yada chamar v'lo kelim. Ubein l'Rav Yehuda kamar v'lo kelim. In both shitais, asks the Gemara 1 second. Kelim b'nei Misa ninu. Is a keli an entity that is something that you're chayiv Misa on? Of course not. So says the Gemara, once the Torah says v'hamesi eloi, that should automatically come to exclude kelim. And according to Rav Yehuda, what's he going to say? Because the pasuk seems to exclude kelim. Answers the Gemara, Amri shvirasan zui misasan. No, when an item is broken, that's called its death. Says the Gemara further, l'Rav Damar Barsha Chayvelav Teira. According to Rav, that which entity of the bar you chayiv on the airspace, and now to the chavota, not the bang of the bar. Ask the Gemara, says the Gemara, whichever way you twist it, another kash on Rabbanan and Rav Yehuda, kelim are not b'nei havolin. They don't die via the bad air; they die from the bang. But according to Rav, you're not chayiv on the bang. Answers the Gemara, Amri b'chaditi demafki mehavla. It's sometimes a brand new earthenware keli could indeed burst, could indeed break if it's exposed to hevel, exposed to bad air. Says the Gemara, we just used a moment ago V'amesi Eloi as a klal to include oifais. Ask the Gemara 1 second. We need this pasuk for the din of Rava. De Amar Rava, Shar Psuli HaMikdashim, Shenav Alibar Potur. A Shar Psuli HaMikdashim, Shar of a carbon that is possible that fell to a pit is a potter, and the animal died. The balabar is potter. Shenamar. We had this a few days ago. Why is he potter? Says in the Torah, V'amesi Eloi. From there we darsha Misha Amesi Eloi, whom the dead body goes to him. Yatzazeh by Psuli HaMikdash Shein Amesi Eloi. So answers the Gemara. So we need the pasuk of Amesi Eloi for a different drasha. How can we use it to learn out oifais? How can we use it to learn out anything which is obligated for the Misa, which we then came along to include ask on Kelim, but we need it for this pasuk of Psuli HaMikdashim. Ella Amar Kra, says the Gemara, Kesev Yoshev Labailov. The money should return to the owners, the rabbis. Kol de'is le'bailim. Couldn't exclude anything with owners, and therefore that's the reason why Psuli HaMikdashim is excluded, not because Amesi Eloi, but because there's no bailim. Iachi if you look Kelim v'adam nami. Ask the Gemara, so then even Kelim and Adam as well should be included because it has an owner, so you should be chayiv. Omar cross, we need the drasha sharv lo Adam chamar v'lo Kelim. Or Rav Yehuda the kamar v'lo Kelim b'shlam shar. I understand shar mimat baby Adam el chamar my mat according to Rav Yehuda shar v'lo Adam chamar v'lo Kelim. What do you need the word chamar for? So Rav Yehuda answers 7 lines from the bottom. Elo merava chamar debar. The Rav Yehuda said David deliver kol kasha. True, this is a kasha according to Rav Yehuda. And there's also another kasha, says the Gemara, that when it comes to Aveda, the Torah says seh, which is unnecessary as it really is. All items are an Aveda. Both these are indeed a kasha. We continue 5 lines from the bottom as the Gemara quotes the next segment of the Mishnah, which says, that if an animal which is a chayri shaita v'katam deranged, a minor or a shaita falls into the pit, halacha is the owner of the pit is chayiv. Now we've been reading the Mishnah shar chayri shaita v'katam because that's seemingly what the words mean. Now the Gemara delves into that precise detail and says, 1 second, my shar chayri v'katam. Shar shel chayri shaita v'katam shel chayri shar shel shaita shel katan. If you're going to tell me what this means is the ox that is owned by the chayrish, owned by the shaita, owned by the katan, from there we would say har shel shabikeach potter. Then it would sound like only an ox owned by these entities you're chayiv for. It would seem to negate an ox owned by a regular person you're potter. Can't be. So what does the Mishnah mean? Shar shel chayri, shar shehu shaita, shar shehu katan. That the shar itself is such, which is how we've been explaining it as Rashi in the Mishnah. Kidas in. Continues the Gemara as we turn over to Nandalid Amibis. Hashar shehu pikeach pater. Does this mean that if the shar itself is a pikeach? Sounds like the only time you're obligated is if you kill a shar that has no das, a shar that is a minor. Are you going to tell me that a shar that is a pikech you're potter? How could that be? Amar Rav Yirmiyah, says Rav Yirmiyah, no, that's not what it means. And we lost our page of Gemara. Oh, there it is. Amar Rav Yirmiyah, is that what it means? Loi mi bayi kamar. It's needless to say. Loi mi bayi. It's pashit if what? Shar should be keach the chayiv. If the shar has das, then of course you're chayiv for damaging such a shar. Avol shar chayresh shaita vekatan. I would have thought what? Ema. Charshusai garmalai, katanusai garmalai, v'lifater. Maybe it is the fact that the shar is a cheresh, it is a katan. Maybe that's what caused the shar to fall into the pit, and therefore the balabar maybe should be pater. Kamash malon, then no, the balabar is chayiv. Omar le Ravach le Ravina ve'hatanya. We learned in a brayso 6 lines down the Dalan base. Nafal l'toichei bardas potter. If a bardas falls into a pit, the owner is potter. My love shar bardas. It sounds like there indeed is an exclusion if the shar is a bardas. Omar le loy. That is not what this means. Omar le lohi adam. Are you going to tell me if the Adam is a bendas? I apologize. Adam bardas who the potter. You're going to tell me if the Adam is a bendas is potter. Halav bendas who the chayiv. Adam kisiv. What happened to the whole Amid Aleph? We darshan so many times that you're potter on an Adam. Elamai bendas, says the Gemara. What does the Brisa mean when it says bendas? Min ben das. It means to a human being, the intelligence of min. Min ben das. That's when there's a ptur in all human beings. Amar leva tanya naflatech shar ben das potter. So the words ben das clearly do not refer to min ben das. Elo amar Rava, says Rava, shar vehu cheresh, shar vehu shayite, shar vehu katan, dafka. Avol sharvu pikeach. Indeed, says Rava, you are potter. My taimo. Where does Rava get this din that if the shar is a shar? I apologize that we're having a hard time with the. Doesn't want to let me make us smaller. Okay. My taimo. What's using your potter? Says the Gemara, you know why? The reason why we are potter is because if the shar is a bendas, because the shar itself should have watched where it was walking. Tanam Yehachi, says the Gemara, Raya, to what we just said in the top narrow line of Nun Dalit Amud Beis. Navlo Techashar Cheshet Vekatan Visuma Mahalich Balayla Chayev Pikech Mahalich Bayayim Potter. So we see there is indeed some level of Pitur for a Shar Ben Das, because we say it should have watched where it was going. And we continue with the Mishnah. Nun Dalit Amud Beis. We're in the middle of the dinim of Bar. Says the Mishnah, Echad Shar ve'echad kol behema. Whether it's a shar or any animal, Linefilas habar ulafrashas har Sinai. With regard to the payment for pulling into a bar, with regard to the hafrashas har Sinai, that the separation from Har Sinai by giving the Torah, that no animal is allowed to go in Har Sinai as long as the Shekhinah was on the mountain. Ula tashlume kefel, ula ashavas aveda, leprika, leprika, to unload the animal, which is a special Isser that you have to help. Well, you'll see, lechasima, you have to muzzle an animal, lekalayim, ulishabis, v'chein, chaya v'oif. It's similarly a wild animal or a bird, kayotze behem, imkein laman emeshar chamar, eladiber elashadavar hakasav b'hayveh. The Torah speaks in the normal case. And really what this Mishnah is coming off of, I believe we look at Rashi over here at the beginning of the Mishnah. Rashi says that, Rashi does say that by Hartzin it says Behemam Ish. Well, let's go into the Gemara. The Gemara is really going to teach us exactly what's going on. Says the Gemara, we have 8 cases in the Mishnah. Says that even though in each of these cases it seemingly hones in on a specific entity, it's referring to all animals. Says the Gemara, Lenefilas bar, when it comes to falling into the bar, says the Torah, Kasev Yashav Labailav Kisev called Islay Bailim, meaning Kidamaran. As we've said, it's not in just of Shar v'Chamar, as we saw in Amud Aleph. It's all animals. La Frashas Har Sinai, where do we learn this from? Behema Mish Lo Yechia, says the Torah. Behema are man, V'chaya Bechlal Behema, wild beasts are part of Behema, Havoi. Im l'Rabbis is Ha'ifais, L'Tashlume, Im l'Rabbis is Ha'ifais, and Im comes to include the birds. So that's by the din of Har Sinai. L'Tashlume Kefel, and of course the Gemara is now going through each of the dinim of the Mishnah and figure out the source. L'Tashlume Kefel, where do we see the din that the payments for Kefel apply to all animals? Kedamaran, as we have said that what? I'll call Dvar Pesha, says the Pasik, for anything that one is chayav for, klal is a klal, called Dvar Pshia, Lashavas Aveda. Excuse me, klal, what does it come to include? Called Dvar Pshia, thing that one is liable for, and therefore any form of animal one doesn't have to pay kefel for. L'chol Aveda Zachicha. Continues the Gemara, din number 4 in the Mishnah, that La Shavas Avedi, where we learn that from the Chol Avedi Zachicha. Leprika, the 5th din, that if an animal is struggling underneath its load, you're not allowed to leave, you have to help it. Even though Torah only talks about a chamar, Yolav chamar mi Shabbos. We're going to learn the 2 out from Shabbos that applies not just to a chamar, but to all animals. Lechasima, with regard to muzzling an animal, Yolav shar mi Shabbos. Lekalayim, Iklayim the charisha, yolf shar mishabes. Iklayim the harva, mating the animal, yolf be'emtecha mishabes. The gabi Shabbos min Allah. So these last 3 dinim all came from Shabbos. Says the Gemara, where do we know the din of Shabbos applies to all animals? Titan, you learned to the Bryce of Yisrael, Rav Yishmael. B'dibros harishai nice nemar. In the first Azaris, the Dibros, what does it say? But there was Achrein Nemar Visharcha V'charcha V'chamarcha V'chol B'emtecha. So the first time it says Avcha V'mascha and B'emtecha. Second time it says Sharcha Chamarcha. V'aloi says the Gemara Shar V'chamar B'chlal Kol Behema. It's included as a behema. So it's a sharcha chamorcha v'chol be'emtecha hayu. V'lama yatsu laimer lecha. What is the Torah teaching you? Ma shar v'chamor omer kan is chayav ha'if ki yaitze behem, all animals, av kol chayav ha'oif ki yaitze behem. So therefore, everything chayav ha'oif is included. Ask the Gemara, ema behema dibros rishayna is klal. 1 second. Maybe the fact that by the dibros rishayna, by the first Asaris dibros, what does it say? It says behema. Sharcha v'chamarcha dibros achrayna prat. Then the Torah says sharcha v'chamarcha. We're about 20 lines to the bottom. The first line is sharcha. Is a prat is specific. Klalu prat, a general and a specific ein b'chlal. Elamashe prat. So ask the Gemara, shar v'chamar in midi achrini loi. Maybe the din of Shabbos is only by shar v'chamar. Answers the Gemara, Amri v'chol be'emtecha divros achraynes. But by divros achraynes, it continues shar v'chamar v'chol be'emtecha chazar v'klal. Klal prat klalia to dana keina prat. Has to be similar to the prat, which is one ma'avar berush balechayim avkol balechayim. One is liable on for Shabbos. Ema asked the Gemara, why don't we say ma'abra mefurush davar shen v'leosai mitama b'mago b'masa? Why don't we say that similar to what we said in Amin Aleph? The prat is explicit, shar v'chamar, which is something which is tamei via touching or lifting it. Of kol davar shen v'leosai mitama b'mago b'masa, which would what? Which would come to exclude avol oifais. Loi. Answers the Gemara, Amri in kinech rachmana chad prata. Should have just said shar or chamar. Why'd have to say both? Answers the Gemara, what do you mean? Hey, nechtav rachmana. Which one should the Torah have said? Because rachmana shar v'mina karv l'kav zech and a shein karv l'kav zbeach. Loi, the exact shak l'tar we had an aleph. Because rachmana chamar. Because rachmana chamar have a mina kadosh b'v'chayrein. Shein kadosh b'v'chayrein. Loi, because rachmana shar el v'chabem t'chal l'rabu. So says the Gemara back to the kasha that it should exclude oifais. Answers the Gemara, chol be'em t'chal is a riboy. Kol echad d'kasev. Rachmana kol ribuyu. Says Gemara, really? Is this true? Is it every time that the Torah writes kol coming to be a riboy? Says the Gemara, what do you mean? We have by meiser d'chsev kol v'kodarshina le bechlalu prat. Even though by meiser the word kol exists, and yet asks the Gemara by meiser, it's not so simple, but rather we darshan klalu prat. Titani, we learned in a brayso you should give money, everything. Anything that your soul desires. Klal, that's general. The Torah lists specific items. Prat, those are specifics. Whatever your soul will ask for, chazar v'klal. Klal upradu klal. Prat, just be specific to the prat. Ma abram efurash pri mi pri v'gedulei karka. I've called pri v'gedulei karka. That's what's gonna have a chiva meiser. Amri. So ask the Gemara, but what do we see? We see that even though the pasuk says v'nasata kesav bechol asher tava nafshecha, what do we see? We see we're still darshni klalu prat. So back to us, we should not include oifais, even though it says kol. Seemingly we should darshan klalu prat. Answers the Gemara, Amri bikol is a klala. Over there it says v'nasata kesav bikol asher nasat bechol asher tava nafshecha. But by us, kol is a rebuye. Teretz number 1. Teretz number 2. By saying kol nami klalu really calls also a klal. Miu hai kol dahacha rebuyu. By us, it's a special rebuy. Why? Mitavlu mechtav ubehemtecha. Sharcha v'chamarcha ubehemtecha. Why kedich say b'dibros rishaynais? Like in the first dibros it said. So why by dibros achraynis let's go out of its way and add in the word because of v'chol behemtecha? Shma mina rebuya. So says the Gemara, hash tadamer called the rebuya. Now that you tell me calls her a rebuy, ben techel dibros rishaynais v'shavchamar dibros achraynis lamali. If calls coming to include everything, so now we have 3 extra words. We have shar v'chamar by dibros achraynis. We have emtecha by dibros rishaynais. Amri says the Gemara, shar like murei shar lechasima. Chamar, like mui chamar lefrika. All the halachas that we said are equated to Shabbos. That's where we learn it out from. Behemtecha is what? Like murei, 5 lines to the bottom. Behemtecha leklayim. He says, Gemara, filu adam. Even then, ask the Gemara, the same din should apply. Filu adam lisar. Even adam should be asar in kalayim if it's together with an animal. Alama tanah. Why do we learn adam mutar im kulam lachreish limsheich? You could put together a harness with a human being and an animal, and it's not an Isser Kalayim. Why? Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa, Papuna Yadai Taimada Milsa. And who is the Papuna? Manuach Rav Acha Bar Yaakov Amar Kra, Lamani Anuach Abducha Vamascha Kamaicha, Lanocha Akashasev Valoi Ladavar Acher. Only for listing, only for Lahanacha, only for resting on Shabbos do we equate the two, but not for davar acher, and therefore, with regard to kilayim, an adam will not be included. We'll continue with the shayla of Rav Chanina ben Agil the next year, b'siyata dishmaya.